So, if you have not heard, Electronic Arts has officially lost
No longer has the exclusive rights to the Star Wars.
It appears that EA will no longer have that exclusivity deal with Disney.
EA recently lost their exclusivity license regarding Star Wars games. This news immediately got me thinking, what will this mean for the future of the Battlefront franchise? Let's just jump right into it.
With Chris from LucasArts talking about Star Wars Battlefront. What are we doing here, Chris?
Well, we're here witnessing a battle. The rebels have just ambushed the Imperials, okay? And
Is this safe? I bet the laser blast right here.
you'll be fine, you'll be fine. If you're making a game about Star Wars Battlefronts, you need to be in the battlefront.
The first ever Battlefront game was released on the 21st of September in 2004, simply called Star Wars Battlefront. The game launched on PC, the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. The game was well received by the Star Wars community, although I can't speak for myself on the first couple of Battlefront games, as the first installment of the franchise is even older than I am. I personally have never played any of the original Battlefront games, but it seems like most people enjoyed them, and still do. The second Battlefront game, Star Wars Battlefront II, was released shortly after the first one in 2005. The third and fourth game of the franchise were Star Wars Battlefront Renegade Squadron and Star Wars Battlefront Elite Squadron, released in 2007 and 2009 respectively. Although these games were marketed as the third and fourth installments in the Battlefront series, they were really just specific aspects and storylines of the earlier Battlefront games. Nowadays these titles would probably be released as DLCs of the original games and not as separate games. Hype was starting to build when in 2012 LucasArts, the Lucasfilm game studio, was working on an actual third installment in the Battlefront franchise, Star Wars Battlefront III. The development was well underway when LucasArts was sadly shut down as a result of the Disney takeover of Lucasfilm in 2013. The development on Battlefront 3 was put on hold, but the game sadly was eventually cancelled later that year. In 2013, Disney announced that EA would get a multi-year exclusivity deal to the Star Wars franchise. This deal meant that EA were the only ones able to create Star Wars games for the coming 10 years. EA immediately began development on their first Star Wars game, a reboot of the classic Star Wars game, Star Wars Battlefront, this time without the dots.
Our DICE studio is using Frostbite 3 to create an all-new blockbuster. Let's take a look.
Star Wars Battlefront launched on the 16th of November in 2015. The hype for the game made for a very active player base upon its release. The game was met with mixed criticism in its early days, but most seemed to really enjoy the game. The base game itself looked promising and contained some great maps, characters and action. Although it had far less maps and characters than the original Battlefront, the amazing quality of the graphics and action made up for most of its problems. Sadly, there were some problems that didn't help the game get up there with its predecessors. Due to EA's horrendous multiplayer platform, the game faced constant glitching, rubber banding, crashing, freezing, failing to matchmake, etc. I personally have played this game. Not that much though, but I have played it, and to be fair, it is actually a really enjoyable game. Back then, in 2015, I wasn't that much into Star Wars and gaming yet, so I didn't really care too much about the details with the lack of maps and characters. Despite its flaws, I finally got to play as characters like Darth Vader and Yoda, which was magical. Although the game was mostly well received, its player base slowly died down over time. Many started to lose interest as the game became repetitive over time, with the lack of maps and special game modes. EA tried to get people back to playing a couple of times with DLCs in 2016, but that arguably made things worse as people were not willing to pay for additional content on a game that they had long given up on. But the future looked bright. Could EA fix the problems of the first game in its sequel?
The day the real war began.
Avenge our Emperor!
The stakes were high when Star Wars Battlefront II released on the 17th of November in 2017. Fans expected much of the sequel to quite a good base game with some minor fixable flaws. Sadly, Battlefront II wasn't at all well received by fans. It wasn't much better than the first game, in fact, many argued it was even worse. The major problem fans had with Battlefront 2 was that it used a pay-to-unlock loot boxing system. Instead of earning new weapons and skins by playing, you unlocked weapons and skin based on luck through loot boxes, which you earned literally by logging into the game. There were skins that were unlockable by playing, but you needed hours and hours of playtime to get anywhere near unlocking them. Other than that, the game wasn't as much of an expansion of the first game, with only a handful of new heroes and even less maps than its predecessor. The game, however, did come with a new thing: a single-player campaign. The campaign follows the story of an Imperial TIE fighter pilot who turns on the Empire and joins the rebellion. This campaign is an excellent addition to the game in my opinion. I have played the campaign in its entirety a couple of times now, and I think the campaign provides something extra to the somewhat thin base game. All with all, the game was considered a flop, as it had sold significantly less copies than they had hoped for, and much of the player base left after only a couple of weeks of playing. After the flop of Battlefront 2 release, EA was looking for opportunities to redeem the game and themselves.
Don't let him shake you. Numbers aren't everything.
Only a month after Battlefront 2 original release in December of 2017, EA announced The Last Jedi Season, a new free content update based on the latest Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi. The content update came with 2 new characters, Captain Phasma and Finn, and 2 new maps, Crate and Dakar. It also came with a new campaign, based on the same characters as the first campaign. The season was basically a free DLC, which got many players back to the game. The new content update was very well received by fans, and the game was once again back at where it was upon its release, in terms of active players. The game sadly still was much of the same progression wise. Skins were still randomly unlocked and the game still used the loot box system. Luckily, in March of 2018, 4 months after Battlefront 2's original launch, EA decided to get rid of the unfair and random loot boxing system. Players would fairly unlock new skins and weapons by playing the game and achieving goals. This was a huge improvement to the game, as many players were now coming back to the game to unlock new skins and not having to rely on luck to unlock their favorite character skins. The game was very much improved, yet players still felt the game became repetitive over time, as there were not enough maps and different game modes. EA went to release 24 more of these free content updates every couple of months to the game. The additional content ranged from prequel trilogy characters and maps to sequel trilogy characters and even completely new game modes and infantry troops. Sadly, in April of 2019, EA announced that the Battle of Scarif content update would be the last, to the surprise of many of the fanbase. Many players were mad at EA for giving up on the game, but I personally think EA did the game justice. They had given us a game that failed to deliver on many fronts at the beginning, but ended up giving us one of the most inclusive Star Wars games to date. There are many characters and maps that feel like they're still missing from the game, but EA realized that they had under-delivered and redeemed themselves by giving us content update after content update after content update. The game as of now, in January 2021, even has more active players than it has ever had. So, EA recently lost their Star Wars game exclusivity license with Disney. Their original deal would be until 2023, but Disney decided to cut their deal short. They haven't elaborated on why yet, but I have some suspicions. EA has created 4 Star Wars games in the 8 years they had their license: Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2, Jedi Fallen Order and Rogue Squadron. Battlefront 1 was an okay game, Battlefront 2 was an utter failure, and Rogue Squadron was really just the Battlefront 2 game, but a bit modified without the ground battles, of course. The only good game that they have produced, that the fans collectively liked, was Jedi Fallen Order. I think Disney noticed EA's trend of under-delivering with the Star Wars brand and therefore decided to cut their license short. From now on, other game studios are given Star Wars licensing as well, if they pitch a good game, of course. This is a really positive thing for the Star Wars games, as game studios now have to try to produce an actual good game in order to get their license. EA can still pitch games to Disney, of course, but other game studios get to produce games as well, which hopefully creates some competition, which will lead to better games. Now my question is, what will the future of Battlefront gaming be? As of now, it's still a bit uncertain. With the cancellation of Battlefront 2 in early 2019, I thought, and maybe even hoped, it would mean EA was starting development on Battlefront 3. Of course, we now know we got another game, Rogue Squadron, but I am still curious if EA had never started development on Battlefront 3 before they lost their license. If so, I could definitely see Disney giving them the green light to continue producing the game with the recent major success of Battlefront 2. If they haven't started development on Battlefront 3, I'm curious if a new gaming studio could take over from EA, if that's legally possible, or they could obviously pitch the game themselves. After all, I do really believe a Battlefront 3 has lots of potential and will almost certainly be a success. It's not up to us to worry if it will ever come, because I think it will. It's up to the gaming studios to worry about who will get to produce it. Who do you think could be the ones that will get to produce Battlefront 3? Or do you think there won't be a new Battlefront game? Let me know in the comments down below. If you liked this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to hover over some more of these topics each Saturday. Well, that's it. I'm out.